I trusted him, loved him, built a life with him. But one late night, everything shattered because I discovered he was hiding her. Not just a stranger, but someone close. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I planned. And what I did next, no one saw coming. Before I take you through this wild emotional ride, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy true stories with unexpected twists. Share this with someone who believes karma is real. I used to think I had the kind of life people dreamed about. You know, the sweet kind you see in movies, where love is warm, mornings start with forehead kisses, and everything feels safe. I met my husband in my early 20s, and within a year, we were married. It felt easy. He was charming in that classic old school way, thoughtful, always held the door, remembered the little things, made sure I smiled even on my worst days. He had this way of making me feel like I was the center of his world, and for a while, I truly believed I was. He worked hard, had a good job, wore his ambition like a badge of honor. People admired him, and I did too. I supported him, stood by him, and poured everything I had into building a life with him. 5 years of marriage felt like 5 minutes, in the best way. Our friends called us the perfect couple. I used to smile when they said that. But looking back now, I realize perfection can be a mask. Tight, polished, hiding everything that's slowly crumbling underneath. And if you look closely enough, even the brightest smiles cast shadows. I just didn't want to see them until I had no choice. It started small. So small, in fact, that I almost convinced myself it was all in my head. At first, it was his phone. He used to leave it around the house like it was no big deal. But then one day, I noticed he started keeping it with him everywhere, even in the bathroom. At night, it was face down and on silent. He brushed it off when I asked, said he was just avoiding work calls after hours. Made sense, until it didn't. Then came the late nights. He'd claim to be at the office or grabbing drinks with co-workers. Sometimes he'd come home smelling like cologne he never used before. I asked once, just once, if he was seeing someone. He laughed. Actually laughed, like the thought was ridiculous. And I remember thinking, maybe I'm just being paranoid, but my gut, it wouldn't shut up. He stopped looking at me the same way. We still kissed, but it felt rehearsed. He'd compliment me, but it sounded automatic, like he was checking a box. And intimacy, that changed too. It wasn't about connection anymore. It felt distant, mechanical, like I wasn't really there with him, and maybe in his head, he wasn't there either. Still, I tried to make it work. I thought maybe he was stressed, maybe work was wearing him down, maybe I needed to be more understanding. I cooked his favorite meals. I tried new things in the bedroom. I planned little surprises. But nothing worked. Then, one night, while he was in the shower, a text popped up on his screen. Just one sentence, just 4 words. Last night was perfect. And it wasn't from me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry, not right away. I just stared at that message. My hands shook, but I kept quiet. I knew if I confronted him in that moment, I'd never get the full truth. So I made a choice. I would find out everything first, quietly. That night, I copied his phone's backup to my laptop. I had no idea what I'd find, but my stomach already knew. The next morning, while he was out, I opened the files. It was worse than I imagined. Dozens of messages, flirty texts, photos, voice notes. Their conversations weren't just sexual, they were emotional. Jokes they shared, plans they were making, even arguments. Like they were in a full-blown relationship. She called him by a nickname I'd never even heard, and he replied with, "I love you," like it meant nothing. I felt numb, but I still didn't know who she was. Her name wasn't saved in his phone, just initials. No pictures that showed her face. It was all so careful, so sneaky. I read through everything, hoping for some clue, anything. Then I noticed a detail. They mentioned meeting near a particular coffee shop. That shop was close to a gym I used to go to, and there was only one woman in our circle who worked right across the street from there. I remembered seeing her laugh too loudly at his jokes once, the way she hugged him a second too long at a barbecue. Things that meant nothing before now screamed the truth. Could it be her? The more I thought about it, the more things added up. I wasn't 100% sure yet, but deep down, I knew. And in that moment, something inside me changed. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to break. I was going to watch. A few days later, I decided to test my theory. I casually invited a few friends over, including her. Let's call her T. I wanted to see them interact with my own eyes, to feel the energy in the room, and I did. The moment T walked in and saw my husband, her whole face lit up. But she tried to hide it. He looked nervous, almost like he didn't know where to look. It wasn't obvious to anyone else, but to me, their body language screamed a secret. I watched everything, the subtle glances, the way he avoided sitting too close, the forced small talk. It was like they were trying too hard to look normal. Then came the final proof. That night, after everyone left, I waited until he was asleep and checked his phone again. A new message was sitting there. That was risky. You sure she doesn't know? Sent from a number that matched the initials in the chat history. I froze. My heart pounded, not with sadness, but with clarity. It was T, a woman I had welcomed into my home, someone I had laughed with, shared secrets with. I couldn't believe the betrayal wasn't just from him, it was from her too. I didn't know what hurt more, that he chose to cheat, or that he chose her. But now there was no more guessing, no more hoping it was just my imagination. It was real, all of it. And I had to decide what to do next. I could scream, I could confront them, I could burn it all down, but I didn't, not yet. Realized I had something more powerful than rage. I had the truth, and I was going to use it, quietly, smartly, and with a calm they'd never see coming. The days that followed were the hardest. I went through a storm of emotions I never thought I'd feel. Some mornings I woke up feeling numb, like my whole life had been a lie. Other nights I cried so hard into my pillow just to keep from waking him. The house we built together now felt cold, filled with memories that stung like paper cuts. I looked at myself in the mirror and questioned everything. Was I not pretty enough? Did I get too comfortable? Was I too focused on work or not exciting anymore? Those questions haunted me. I compared myself to her, T. She wasn't smarter, kinder, or more beautiful, but somehow she had what was mine. And that cut deeper than anything. Worse than the betrayal was the humiliation. Knowing I had been smiling at her, talking to her, trusting her. I had invited her to dinner, bought her gifts on her birthday, even shared advice with her during her rough days. She played the part of a friend, all while stealing moments with my husband behind my back. I didn't eat much, I didn't go out, I ignored calls from friends, I just shut down. But one morning, I woke up and couldn't recognize the person I had become. I realized that if I let this destroy me, then they would win, both of them. That was the day I decided I wouldn't cry anymore. I wouldn't waste another second mourning people who never valued me. I stood in the mirror, wiped my face, and said out loud, "You're done feeling small." From that moment, I stopped being the broken wife. I became the quiet storm, and I started planning everything, piece by piece, calm, focused, ready. Once the fog lifted, everything became clear. I had been broken, yes, but I wasn't weak. I was still standing, still breathing, and most importantly, I still had control over what happened next. That realization changed everything. I didn't want to throw plates or scream in the middle of the night. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, without me saying a single angry word. That would be the real revenge, calm, collected truth. I stopped showing signs of pain. Around him, I smiled again. I asked about his day, cooked dinner, even laughed at his jokes. I played the role so well, he started to relax. Thought he'd gotten away with it. That was exactly what I needed. While he was at work or with her, I got to work too. I gathered every piece of evidence. I made backups of messages, screenshots of their texts, timestamps of hotel stays, and even screen recorded his deleted chats, syncing from his cloud account. I started a private folder, safely hidden, labeled with a boring name like Budget Sheets. But I didn't stop there. I met with a lawyer, quietly, found out my rights. Turns out the house we lived in, bought with my inheritance, fully in my name, and with the right proof of infidelity, things could swing heavily in my favour. It was empowering, like I was slowly reclaiming every piece of myself they tried to take. I even reconnected with a few trusted friends, not to vent, but to set the stage. I told them I was planning a surprise anniversary dinner and needed help. Smiles all around. No one suspected the real surprise that was coming. The pieces were falling into place, not out of anger anymore, but out of strategy. The hardest part wasn't the planning, it was the pretending. Every day I had to look at the man I once loved and act like I still did. I had to smile at his fake affection, nod along to his lies, and keep my face calm even when my heart burned with truth. But every time I felt that pain rise up, I reminded myself, just a little longer. I kept gathering proof, organizing it like a case file. I had receipts, screenshots, voice notes, even a short video clip from a hotel lobby camera I quietly requested through a friend. I turned pain into purpose, and the more I uncovered, the stronger I felt. I knew their entire schedule, when they met, what they said, how they planned to keep hiding from me. Then came the idea, an anniversary dinner. I told him I wanted to do something special. I acted excited, reserved a private dining room at a nice restaurant, told him I'd invited a few of our closest friends for a surprise celebration. I even told him to dress up, that I had a speech prepared. He smiled, thinking maybe I had finally moved on from my mood swings. He had no idea. I also invited her, told T I wanted to make peace, said I knew we'd drifted and wanted her there for old time's sake. She responded with fake enthusiasm, not realizing she was walking right into the fire. Behind the scenes, I had coordinated with a close friend to help record everything. Cameras were discreetly placed, screens were set up for one big reveal. I even rehearsed what I would say. It was all coming together perfectly. This wasn't going to be a breakdown, it was going to be a show. The night of the dinner finally arrived. I got dressed carefully, nothing too flashy, but just enough to look confident and collected. My hands shook slightly as I put on my necklace, but I took a deep breath and reminded myself, you're not walking into war, you're walking into closure. The restaurant was beautiful, candlelit tables, soft music playing, a private room in the back, exactly as I'd planned. I arrived early to double-check everything. The cameras were hidden perfectly. My friend was there, pretending to be a server, ready to record every angle. A laptop was set up near the wall with all the evidence ready to play. Then they walked in. He looked surprised, maybe even a little nervous, but smiled when he saw me. T followed close behind, wearing a too bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. I welcomed them both warmly, offered champagne, and made light conversation. To them, I looked like the forgiving wife who wanted a fresh start. But inside, I was counting every second. Soon, a few more friends arrived, neutral faces who had no idea what was coming. I gave a short toast, thanking everyone for being there, and then said, I've prepared something special to celebrate our journey, and I pressed play. The screen lit up, first the text messages, then the photos, then the video clips. Silence filled the room. My husband's face went pale, T's smile vanished. Gasps came from the guests. No yelling, no accusations, just the truth laid bare. When it ended, I looked them both in the eye and simply said, You didn't just betray me, you insulted me. Then I turned to the room and added, And this is my goodbye. No drama, no tears, just quiet, powerful freedom. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high and my heart lighter than it had felt in months. The moment the doors closed behind me, I felt something shift, like a weight had finally been lifted off my chest. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. In the days that followed, the fallout was loud, but I stayed silent. He called, texted, even showed up at my door. I ignored it all. T tried messaging me too. Apologies, excuses, even denial. I blocked her. There was nothing left to say. I filed for divorce the next week, with every piece of evidence neatly handed over to my lawyer. Because I didn't just want closure, I wanted protection, peace, and a fresh start on my terms. Some people asked why I didn't scream or fight or destroy everything. But the truth is, I did. Just not in the way they expected. Because revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's the calmest storms that do the most damage. And healing. Healing looks like walking away, choosing yourself, and never letting someone else write your worth. I didn't just survive it, I owned it. Life after him didn't magically become perfect, but it became mine. For the first time in years, I woke up without wondering who he was texting or if I was being lied to. The silence in my home felt peaceful instead of painful. I started rebuilding, slowly but surely. I picked up old hobbies I had forgotten I loved. I went back to therapy. I reconnected with friends I had distanced myself from during the marriage. And most importantly, I started falling back in love with myself. I learned how to set boundaries, how to listen to my gut, and how to trust myself again. There were hard days, sure, but I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt reborn. What they did to me could have crushed me, and for a while it almost did. But instead of letting betrayal define me, I let it teach me about strength, about self-respect, about choosing peace over chaos. And now when people ask how I got through it, I tell them the truth. I stopped asking why me and started asking what now? Because sometimes the end of a love story is just the beginning of a stronger one with yourself. If you're listening to my story right now and your heart is hurting in ways you can't explain, please know this: you are not alone. I used to think betrayal only happened in stories or to other people until it happened to me. And when it did, I felt ashamed, embarrassed, and completely shattered. But looking back now, I realized the pain wasn't a sign of weakness. It was proof that I loved deeply and gave everything I had. And if you're going through something similar, you need to know that your worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to value it. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to fight to prove you're enough. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with grace, with dignity, and with your head held high. Heal at your own pace. Feel what you need to feel, but never forget. You still get to choose what happens next. You can rebuild. You can start over. And one day, you'll look back at this moment, not with pain, but with pride. So here's what I want you to remember. You are not broken. You are becoming. And every ending, no matter how painful, can lead to a stronger, wiser, freer version of you. This wasn't just a story about heartbreak. It was a story about rising. And if I could do it after everything I lost, then so can you. So hold on, trust your strength, and when the time is right, rewrite your story. You owe it to yourself to be the hero of your own life. And trust me, you already are. Looking back now, I don't feel bitterness, I feel clarity. What happened to me was painful, yes, but it also opened my eyes to truths I had been avoiding for far too long. I was living in a relationship that looked perfect from the outside, but was quietly eroding my spirit from the inside. And it took heartbreak to wake me up. I don't regret loving him. I don't even regret trying to fix things when they first started falling apart. Because all of that was proof of who I am, someone who gives, who tries, who loves with her whole heart. But now, I've learned to love myself with that same energy. To anyone who's ever been lied to, cheated on, or made to feel small, please hear me. You are not too much. You are not to blame. You are not unlovable. Sometimes people break our hearts because they are broken inside themselves. That's not your burden to carry. Healing takes time, strength takes time, but both are already inside you, waiting to be claimed. So this isn't the end of my story, it's just the end of a chapter I outgrew. I'm writing a new one now, filled with peace, truth, and self-love. And if you're still listening, still watching, maybe this is your sign to turn the page too. If this story touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know who might be silently hurting, silently healing, or silently gathering their strength. And if you're walking through your own storm, remember, you're not alone. Subscribe for more stories that speak to your soul. Until next time, stay strong and always choose you.